The cathedral bells were still ringing in my ears, a joyous clangor that vibrated in my chest as I stood frozen in the doorway of the honeymoon suite. Moments ago, I was Clare Evans, flushed with the triumph of becoming Clare Mitchell. My ivory silk gown, a masterpiece of lace and whispered dreams, felt suddenly heavy, grotesque against my skin. The scent of my bouquet roses, lilac, pure and hopeful, clashed violently with the stale perfume and sweat hanging in the air. The suite was a fantasy of satin and champagne, paid for by my parents' careful savings and my own year of extra shifts. Rose petals littered the floor, leading towards the king-sized bed. A bed that wasn't empty. A bed that held the two people who had just pledged their lives to me and to our family mere hours ago, Mike. My Mike. My husband. His tuxedo jacket was discarded on the plush carpet, his body hanging loose. His crisp white shirt was unbuttoned halfway down his chest. He wasn't alone. Curled against him, her bare shoulder peeking from the rumpled satin sheets, her dark hair fanned across my pillow, was Lily. Lily Mitchell. His sister. His adopted sister. The world didn't just tilt, it shattered. The triumphant orchestra music still playing distantly in my mind screeched into a dissonant, agonizing wail. My lungs seized. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I could only stare, my eyes burning, taking in the devastating tableau. The intimacy of their tangled limbs, the flushed skin, the sheer, unadulterated betrayal radiating from the rumpled bed-like heat. Husband. Sister. Wedding day. The words ricocheted inside my skull, sharp shrapnel tearing through every cherished memory, every whispered promise, every fragile dream I'd carefully built around Mike Mitchell. This wasn't a nightmare you wake sweating from. This was the cold, hard floor of reality cracking open beneath my satin heels. It started perfectly. Too perfectly, maybe, looking back. The sun had streamed through the stained glass windows of the bridal suite as my best friend, Sarah, carefully pinned the antique lace veil into my carefully styled hair. My reflection in the ornate mirror was a stranger radiant, composed, brimming with a happiness so profound it felt like light emanating from my core. Mike is going to lose his mind when he sees you, Sarah breathed, her eyes suspiciously bright. You look Clare. You look like pure magic. I smiled, touching the delicate pearl necklace Mike had given me that morning with a note. For my wife. My forever. I feel it, I whispered, the words thick with emotion. I feel like I've been waiting my whole life for today. My mother, elegant in pale blue silk, dabbed at her eyes. My beautiful girl, so grown up. Mike is a lucky man. There was a warmth in her voice, a genuine affection for the boy she'd watched grow into the man marrying her daughter. Mike had been a fixture in our lives since he and Lily were adopted by the Mitchells when they were 10 and 8, after the car accident that orphaned them. We'd all grown up together in this close-knit suburb. Mike was the golden boy star athlete, charming, fiercely protective of Lily. It had a crush on him since middle school, a slow-burning admiration that blossomed into love during college. Lily was always there. Sweet, fragile Lily, who clung to Mike with a possessiveness we all chalked up to childhood trauma. He was her rock, her protector. We made allowances. The ceremony was everything I dreamed of. Walking down the aisle on my father's arm, seeing Mike waiting for me at the altar, his eyes wide with eye and love, the way they welled up when he saw me, it was perfect. The vows were choked but sincere, our hands trembling as we slid the rings onto each other's fingers. I promised to love you, honor you, cherish you, his voice, strong and clear, echoed in the hushed cathedral. Forsaking all others, keeping only unto you, forsaking all others. The phrase now tasted like ash in my mouth. Lily had been a bridesmaid. She had stood beside Sarah, stunning in her emerald gown, her smile wide but somehow brittle. She had hugged Mike fiercely after the ceremony, whispering something in his ear that made him laugh and ruffle her hair. My little sister had announced to the crowd, beaming. Couldn't do this without her. Everyone had awed, including me. I thought it was sweet. My heart had swelled seeing how much he loved his family, how seamlessly I was being welcomed into it. His parents, beaming with pride, had enveloped me in warm hugs. "Welcome to the family, officially Claire." His mother had gushed. The irony was a physical blow. The reception was a whirlwind of champagne, laughter, and dancing. Mike held me close during our first dance, his hand warm on the small of my back, his forehead resting against mine. "Mrs. Mitchell," he murmured, his breath warm against my ear. I like the sound of that. "Forever starts now, Claire." It melted against him, utterly secure, utterly loved. But there were moments, tiny fractures in the perfect glass bubble. Moments my brain, addled by happiness and champagne, had brushed aside. Like when I went to find Mike for the cake cutting and found him in a quiet corner of the garden with Lily. They weren't doing anything wrong, just talking. But the way he leaned towards her, the intensity in his eyes, the way her hand rested on his armpit felt intimate. More intimate than siblings. When I called his name, head jerked back, a flicker of something unreadable guilt, annoyance, crossing his face before he plastered on his dazzling smile. "There's my beautiful wife." Head swept me into a hug, but my eyes met Lily's over his shoulder. Her expression was cool, challenging. She gave me a small, tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Just giving the groom some last-minute brotherly advice," she'd said lightly, but the air felt charged. Later, during the bouquet toss, Lily had been right at the front, her eyes fixed not on the flowers, but on Mike, who was watching her with an amused smirk. When Sarah caught it, Lily's smile faltered for just a second before she clapped politely. Then Mike disappeared. Just for 20 minutes or so. When I asked his groomsman, Ben, he shrugged, said he needed some air, maybe a quick smoke. "He'll be back." When Mike returned, his tie was slightly crooked, and there was a faint, unfamiliar floral scent clinging to him, mingling with his usual cologne. He blamed it on hugging his Aunt Marge, who drowned in gardenia perfume. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? It was my wedding day. Trust was the air I breathed. The party wound down. Hugs, tears, well wishes. Mike's parents handed us the key card to the honeymoon suite, a luxurious room right at the top of the historic hotel attached to the venue. "Go on, you two lovebirds." His dad chuckled, clapping Mike on the back. "Start the rest of your lives." Mike grabbed my hand, his eyes alight with anticipation. "Ready, Mrs. Mitchell." The way he said it sent a thrill through me. We said our final goodbyes. Lily hugged me stiffly. "Congratulations again, Claire. Take care of my big brother." Her tone was flat. Then she hugged Mike, lingering, whispering something that made him nod and squeeze her shoulder. "Get some rest, Lil," he murmured. "Big day for you too." I remember thinking that was odd. Her big day. But again, brushed it aside. Wedding brain. Exhaustion. Happiness. We rode the elevator up, giggling like teenagers, stealing kisses. He fumbled with the keycard at the door, pulling me close, his kisses growing more urgent. "Can't wait to get you out of this dress," he growled playfully against my neck. The promise in his voice ignited a fire in my belly. He finally got the door open, pushing it wide. "After you, my love." That's when I saw them. The room wasn't empty. The lights were dimmed, candles flickering on the dresser, casting long, dancing shadows. The rose petals led enteringly to the bed. And on the bed, illuminated by the soft glow from the ensuite bathroom, were Mike and Lily. My Mike. His Lily. Not side by side. Tangled. Intimately. Passionately. Caught in the act. Mike was half propped up, Lily draped over him, her back to the door, her emerald bridesmaid dress pulled around her waist on the floor beside the bed. His hand was buried in her dark hair, his lips pressed against her temple. Her leg was hooked over his hip. They were both partially under the sheet, but enough was visible bare skin, the frantic energy of interrupted passion to leave absolutely nothing to the imagination. The air was thick with the smell of sex, expensive hotel soap, and Lily's signature jasmine perfume. Time stopped. Sound vanished. The only thing I heard was the frantic hammering of my own heart against my ribs, a frantic bird trying to escape a collapsing cage. My vision tunneled, focusing horrifyingly on the details. The familiar curve of Mike's shoulder, the birthmark on his bicep it kissed countless times, the intricate strap of Lily's lace bra. Visible where the sheet slipped, the discarded champagne flute on the knitstand, still holding dregs of our wedding toast. Mike's tuxedo pants crumpled next to Lily's dress on the expensive carpet. A strangled sound escaped my throat. Not a scream, not a sob. A guttural, animal sound of pure, unadulterated agony. Mike's head snapped up. His eyes, hazy with desire a split second before, widened in abject terror. He froze, deer in headlights, the color draining from his face so fast I thought he might faint. Clare. His voice was a hoarse croak, laced with panic. He instinctively tried to push Lily away, but she clung tighter, burying her face against his chest, as if she was the one seeking protection. Lily slowly turned her head, peering over her shoulder. Her face was flushed, her lips swollen, her eyes glazed. But beneath the haze, I saw it. Not just shock, not just guilt. Triumph. A chilling, terrifying flicker of triumph in her dark eyes before they widened in a parody of innocence and horror. Oh God. Clare. She gasped, scrambling to pull the sheet higher, her movement exposing more of Mike's bare chest. It's not what it looks like. The sheer, breathtaking audacity of that lie shattered the paralysis. A wave of nausea, violent and immediate, surged up my throat. I stumbled back, my hand flying to my mouth. My beautiful wedding dress, the symbol of my commitment, felt like a shroud, suffocating me. The world tilted violently. I grabbed the door frame to steady myself, my knuckles white. Not what it looks like. My voice emerged, low and trembling, barely recognizable. It scraped raw against my throat. What does it look like, Lily? I took a step into the room, the scent of their betrayal hitting me like a physical blow. It looks like my husband, I spat the word, venomous, is freaking his sister in our honeymoon bed. On our wedding day. Mike flinched as if struck. He finally managed to disentangle himself from Lily, scrambling to sit up, holding the sheet over his lap. Clare, baby, please listen, his voice cracked. It just had happened we had too much to drink, it meant nothing. A hysterical laugh bubbled up, sharp and ugly. It meant nothing. You were inside your sister in the bed meant for us hours after you vowed your life to me, and it meant nothing. The rage was a living thing now, a white-hot inferno consuming the ashes of my love. Look at her, Mike. Look at her. She's been waiting for this, hasn't she? Since we were kids. All those accidental touches, the clinging, the possessiveness, and you. You lapped it up. You encouraged her. My God, were you freaking her the whole time? While you were planning our wedding. While you were telling me you loved me. Memories flooded my mind, unbidden, horrific in their new context. Mike canceling dates last minute because Lily was having a hard time. Lily accidentally walking in while I was changing at their parents' house. The way Mike always took her side in any disagreement. The time I found one of her earrings under our bed months ago, and Mike had shrugged it off. She is always leaving stuff everywhere. The late night phone calls he took outside. The times had come home smelling faintly of jasmine, it dismissed it. It trusted him. It trusted them. No. God, no, Clare. It wasn't like that. Mike pleaded, his face contorted in anguish. He tried to get out of bed, stumbled, hampered by the sheet. It was only recently it was a mistake, a horrible, drunken mistake. I love you. I married you today. You have a freaking funny way of showing it. I screamed, the sound raw and primal in the opulent room. My gaze snapped to Lily, who was now sitting up, clutching the sheet to her chest, tears streaming down her face, crocodile tears. I knew instantly. And you. You poisonous little snake. You pretended to be my friend. You stood beside me in my wedding dress while you were planning to freak my husband. Your brother. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with both of you? The hypocrisy was staggering. The Mitchells, pillars of the community, champions of family values. Mike, the devoted son and brother. Lily, the fragile flower everyone protected. And beneath it all, this festering, incestuous secret. The betrayal wasn't just of me, it was of their parents, of the family that took them in, of every single person who loved and trusted them. The adopted status added a layer of profound, gut-wrenching sickness. They weren't bound by blood, but by a bond forged in tragedy, a bond they'd twisted into something perverse and ugly. They'd exploited that unique closeness, hidden behind it. "Get out," I whispered, the rage momentarily subsiding into a terrifying, icy calm. My entire body trembled with the effort of holding myself together. "Get out of this room. Get out of this hotel. Get out of my sight. Claire, please." Mike took another step towards me, hand outstretched. The sight of his nakedness, the intimacy he'd just shared with her still marking his skin, made bile rise in my throat again. "Don't you freaking touch me." I recoiled, hitting the doorframe again. "Don't you ever touch me again." That ring, I pointed a shaking finger at the gold band on his left hand, means nothing. Our marriage is over. Before it even began. You killed it. You both did. In the most vile way possible. Lily started sobbing dramatically. Mike, make her understand it was just we were overwhelmed. The emotions shut up. Lily. Mike roared, rounding on her, his face contorted with a fury it never seen directed at her before. It wasn't fury at their actions, I realized with chilling clarity. It was fury at being caught, at the mess, at the loss of me. Not remorse for destroying me. Just shut up. Seeing him yell at her, the dynamic momentarily shifting, cracked something inside me. This wasn't just a drunken mistake. This was a tangled, toxic relationship I'd never seen, never wanted to see. How long had this been simmering? How many lies had I swallowed? The realization that my entire relationship, my engagement, my wedding day, had been built on a foundation of deceit and betrayal was a psychic earthquake. The ground wasn't just gone, it had never existed. I turned away. I couldn't look at them anymore. The image was seared onto my retinas, a brand of ultimate humiliation and pain. I stumbled back into the hallway, the heavy door swinging shut behind me with a soft, final click. The opulent corridor, with its plush carpet and gilded mirrors, felt like a funhouse version of reality. I leaned against the cool wallpaper, gasping for air, the violent tremors racking my body uncontrollably. The muffled sounds of their arguing started immediately behind the door. Mike's angry hisses, Lily's tearful protests. The sounds of two people desperately trying to salvage the unsalvageable, to spin the narrative. My narrative. My life. I looked down at my left hand. The diamond engagement ring sparkled mockingly in the hallway light. My new wedding band, simple platinum, felt like a shackle. With a cry of pure revulsion, I ripped at them. They were tight, symbols of a love that was a grotesque lie. I scraped my knuckle, but finally wrenched them off. I stared at the pale indentations they left on my finger, then hurled them with all my strength down the hallway. They skittered across the carpet, disappearing under a decorative console table. Good. Let them rot there. What now? Go back to the reception. To my parents, his parents, all our friends. Announce that the groom was busy consummating the marriage with his sister. The humiliation was a physical weight crushing me. I couldn't face anyone. The thought of their pity, their shock, their whispered judgments, it was unbearable. Sarah. I needed Sarah. Fumbling, my hands shaking so violently I could barely grip it, I pulled my phone from the tiny beaded clutch dangling uselessly from my wrist. My vision blurred with tears I hadn't even felt start to fall. I scrolled through the contacts, the names swimming. Found hers. Pressed call. It rang once, twice. Downstairs, the party was probably still winding down. Music faintly pulsed through the floor. Clear. Hey, newlywed. Miss me already. Sarah's cheerful voice sounded tinny through the phone. The normalcy of it was a fresh dagger. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Just a choked gasp. Clare, honey, are you okay? Her voice immediately shifted to concern. Did you trip in that dress? Do you need help? Where are you? As Sarah, I managed, my voice a broken whisper. Honeymoon suite hallway, please come now. The words dissolved into ragged, wrenching sobs that tore from my chest, violent and uncontrollable. I slid down the wall, the heavy silk of my dress bunching around me, the cold floor a shocking contrast to the inferno inside me. I crawled into myself, the weight of the betrayal, the utter devastation, pressing down until I could barely breathe. The carefully constructed future, the honeymoon in Bali, the little house we'd picked out, the dreams of children, of growing old together lay in ruins around me, destroyed in the most brutal, unimaginable way possible. By the two people I was supposed to trust most in the world. Family, husband, sister. The words were obscenities now. The scent of jasmine and betrayal clung to the air, suffocating me. I was Clare Mitchell for less than 4 hours. Now I was nothing but a shattered woman sitting on a cold hotel floor. The echoes of cathedral bells replaced by the deafening roar of her own broken heart and the muffled sounds of treachery seeping from behind the door of what was supposed to be the beginning of everything. The silence on the phone was deafening. Then Sarah's voice, sharp with panic. Clare, Clare, am coming. Hold on. Am coming right now. Part 2 follows, continuing Clare's immediate aftermath, confrontation, and the long road ahead. The seconds stretched into an agonizing eternity. Huddled on the plush carpet, the intricate lace of my wedding gown scratching my cheek, I listened to the frantic, muffled argument continuing behind the heavy wooden door. Mike's voice, low and furious. What the freak were you thinking? Here. Now? Lily's tearful, defensive whine. You wanted to. You said it was the only time we could before it was too late. A foot, maybe a fist hitting a wall, or something thrown. Too late. It is too late. You've ruined everything. She saw. She was never right for you, Mikey. She doesn't understand us like I do. She never could. Each word was a fresh lash. Mikey. She called him Mikey, a childhood nickname it never used. The sickening intimacy of it. She was never right for you. So this wasn't new. This was a conviction, a belief they shared. How many times had they whispered that to each other, hidden in shadows, while I planned our wedding, chose our china, dreamed of his children in my arms? The nausea returned, a relentless tide. I dry heaved, clutching my stomach, the expensive champagne and canapes threatening to make a reappearance. Footsteps pounded down the hallway, frantic and uneven in heels. Sarah rounded the corner, her face pale with terror, her own cocktail dress askew. Her eyes scanned the hallway, widening in horror as they landed on me, a crumpled, sobbing heap of white satin and despair against the elegant wallpaper. Clare. Oh my God, Clare. She dropped to her knees beside me, gathering me into her arms, heedless of the dress. What happened? Are you hurt? Did he hurt you? Her voice was thick with cares and fury. I couldn't speak. I just shook my head violently, burying my face in her shoulder, my body racked with uncontrollable tremors. The dam had burst, and the sobs were primal, tearing sounds that came from a place deeper than grief, a place of utter annihilation. The scent of Sarah's familiar perfume, vanilla and citrus, was a tiny anchor in the swirling maelstrom of jasmine and betrayal. Shh, honey, shh, Sarah murmured, walking me gently, her own tears falling onto my hair. If got you? She looked towards the door of the suite, her expression hardening as the sounds of the argument continued. Her eyes narrowed. Is he in there? Did he do something? I managed a jerky nod, lifting my tear-streaked face. HM and Lily, the names felt like poison on my tongue. Sarah froze. Comprehension dawned slowly, then hit her like a physical blow. Her face drained of all color, then flooded with a rage so intense it was almost frightening. Lily, his sister, she hissed, the words dripping with disbelief and disgust. In there? On your... She couldn't even finish the sentence. She looked from me to the door and back again, her eyes blazing. That freaking bastard! That sick, twisted, she surged to her feet, her fists clenched. I'll kill him. I swear to God, Claire, I'll kill them both. No. I grabbed her wrist with surprising strength, panic momentarily overriding the despair. Sarah, please don't. Just get me out of here. Please. I can't see them. I can't be here. The thought of facing them again, seeing the aftermath written on their skin, smelling it on them, it was beyond endurance. Sarah hesitated, vibrating with fury, but she looked down at me broken, trembling, my makeup a ruined mask, my dream dress a symbol of utter humiliation, and the fight visibly drained from her, replaced by fierce protectiveness. Okay, she breathed, her voice tight. Okay, sweetheart. We're getting you out of here. Right now. She bent down, hooking her arms under mine. Can you stand? Lean on me. Somehow, with her support, I staggered to my feet. My legs felt like water, my body heavy and alien. I leaned heavily against her, my head spinning. As we turned to stumble down the hallway, away from the cursed suite, the door behind us suddenly flew open. Mike stood there barefoot, his tuxedo pants hastily zipped but unbuttoned, his shirt hanging open, revealing the chest Lily's hands had just been on. His face was ashen, etched with panic and something that might have been shame, but mostly looked like desperation. Claire, wait, please. He took a step towards us, hand outstretched. Sarah whirled around, placing herself squarely between him and me, a tiny, furious shield. Don't you freaking come near her. She snarled, her voice low and dangerous. Don't you dare touch her. Sarah, please, just let me talk to her. Mike pleaded, his eyes wild, darting to me over her shoulder. Claire, baby, I'm so sorry. It was a colossal mistake. It meant nothing. I love you. Please, you have to believe me. The sheer audacity, the pathetic repetition of the lie ignited a spark in the numbness. I turned my head slowly, meeting his gaze over Sarah's shoulder. The man I loved, the man I trusted with my life, my future, my heart, stood there reeking of infidelity and his sister's perfume. The love I'd seen in his eyes at the altar was gone, replaced by frantic self-preservation. It was like looking at a stranger. A disgusting, repulsive stranger. Will leave you. My voice was flat, cold, alien even to my own ears. It cut through his pleading like shards of ice. I believed you when you said forsaking all others. I believed you when you slid that ring on my finger. I believed you every single time you lied to me. I believed you loved me. I paused, letting the weight of his betrayal hang in the air. His face crumpled. I don't believe a single word that comes out of your mouth ever again. You don't love me. You love whatever sick fantasy you have with her. I jerked my head towards the doorway where Lily now hovered, wrapped in one of the hotel's plush white robes, her face pale and tear-streaked, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and that lingering, chilling possessiveness. Enjoy it. You deserve each other. You're both monsters. The finality in my tone silenced him. He flinched as if physically struck, his hand dropping limply to his side. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Lily whimpered behind him, shrinking back into the shadows of the suite. Sarah didn't wait for a response. She tightened her arm around me. Let's go, Claire. Away from the garbage. She steered me firmly down the hallway, away from the ruins of my wedding night, away from the two people who had just obliterated my world. The ride down in the elevator was silent except for my hitched breathing and the soft hum of machinery. Sarah kept her arm firmly around me, radiating silent fury and unwavering support. The mirrored walls reflected a grotesque parody. Sarah, fierce and protective in her shimmering blue dress, and me, a shattered ghost in stained ivory, my eyes hollow, my face ravaged. The bride? The punchline. We emerged into the now empty lobby. The cleanup crew was already discreetly clearing away the remnants of the celebration, the champagne flutes, the discarded confetti, the centerpieces still bright with flowers. The sight of it, the tangible evidence of the joy that had existed mere hours ago, now rendered meaningless. Even mocking was another twist of the knife. The wedding coordinator, a cheerful woman named Brenda who had fussed over every detail, looked up from her clipboard. Her smile faltered, then vanished entirely as she took in our appearance Sarah's thunderous expression. My obvious, catastrophic distress, Mrs. Mitchell. Is everything all right? She asked hesitantly, taking a tentative step towards us. The name Mrs. Mitchell was a branding iron. I flinched violently. Sarah stepped forward, her voice clipped and icy. No, everything is very much not all right. My friend needs to leave now. Her car keys. Where are the car keys? She directed the last part to me. I numbly fumbled in my clutch again. My fingers brushed against the cool metal. The car, my car. A sensible sedan parked valet meant to take us to the airport tomorrow for Bali. Another dream turned to dust. I handed the keys to Sarah. Brenda looked utterly bewildered, glancing towards the elevators as if expecting Mike to appear. But the groom. Your luggage. The groom, Sarah spat the word, can go to hell. Along with his luggage. Consider the suite vacant. She didn't wait for a response, steering me forcefully towards the entrance. Valet, now. And don't ask any questions. The ride to Sarah's apartment was a blur of streetlights and suffocating silence. I stared out the window, unseeing, the cold glass against my forehead the only real sensation. The enormity of what happened pressed down, wave after wave. The betrayal. The public humiliation waiting to explode. Telling my parents. Telling his parents. The annulment. The pity. The shame. The complete destruction of my identity. I wasn't Clare Mitchell, the joyful bride. I was Clare Evans, the woman whose husband cheated on her with his sister on their wedding day. The thought made me gag again. Sarah reached over, squeezing my knee wordlessly, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. Sarah lived in a cozy, cluttered one-bedroom apartment. She guided me inside, straight to her tiny bathroom. Get out of that dress, she said gently but firmly. It's done its job. Time to shed it. I stood numbly as she carefully unhooked the dozens of tiny buttons down the back. The silk slithered off my shoulders, pulling at my feet like a discarded skin. I stepped out of it, standing in just my strapless bra and lace-trimmed slip, feeling exposed, vulnerable, and strangely free of the heavy symbol. Sarah gathered the expensive gown, a look of profound disgust on her face. She didn't ball it up, she carried it almost reverently out of the bathroom. I heard the distinct sound of her trash chute clanging down the hall a moment later. A fitting end. She ran a bath hot, steaming, filled with lavender bubbles from a cheap bottle. Get in, she ordered softly. Soak. Try not to think. Just be. The hot water was a shock, then a relief. It stung my scraped knuckle where it ripped off the rings. But the heat seeped into my bones, loosening the tight knot of tension in my shoulders, if not the one in my chest. I sank down until the water covered my chin, closing my eyes. But the images were waiting. The rumpled sheets, Lily's bare shoulder, Mike's terrified eyes. The scent of jasmine seemed to linger in my nostrils. I dunked my head under, scrubbing at my scalp violently, trying to erase it, trying to drown the memories. I came up gasping, water and tears streaming down my face. Sarah was sitting on the closed toilet lid, watching me with worried eyes. She held out a large glass of water and two ibuprofen. Drink. Then take these. Shock is a physical thing too. I obeyed mechanically. The water felt like sand in my throat. The pills stuck, but I forced them down. Do you want to talk? She asked softly. Or just not? I shook my head, unable to form words. Talking meant making it real, meant reliving it. The bath water grew cold, but I didn't move. Sarah eventually handed me a fluffy towel and one of her oversized band t-shirts and sweatpants. I changed, the familiar cotton small comfort against my raw skin. She led me to her couch, piled blankets on me, and turned on the TV to some mindless infomercial, the volume low. A distraction. a small buffer against the crushing silence of my thoughts. My phone, discarded on her coffee table, started buzzing. Relentlessly. The screen lit up again and again. Mike, Mike, Mike. Then Mom, Dad. Mike's mom. Unknown number. Then Mike again. Each buzz was a tiny electric shock of pain and anger. Sarah snatched it up, silencing it, her expression grim. Do you want me to answer? Tell them to freak off into the sun. I shook my head mutely. Not yet. I couldn't face it. Not the pleading, not the questions, not the inevitable fallout. The world outside this cocoon of Sarah's fury and protectiveness felt like a hostile, alien planet. Exhaustion, emotional and physical, finally began to pull me under a heavy, dark blanket. My eyes drifted shut, but sleep offered no refuge. The moment it opened, that door replayed on a loop, a horrifying, high-definition nightmare. Mike's face, Lily's shoulder, the smell, the sounds, the vase echoing mockingly, forsaking all others, I must have drifted off eventually, because I jerked awake hours later to weak morning light filtering through Sarah's curtains. My body ached as if I'd been beaten. My eyes were swollen, gritty. The reality slammed back into me with the force of a freight train. It wasn't a nightmare. It was my life. Sarah was already awake, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside the couch, her laptop open. She looked up as I stirred, her eyes shadowed with lack of sleep but alert. Hey, she said softly. How are you feeling? Relatively speaking. I pushed myself up slowly, wincing. Like I died, I rasped. My throat was raw from crying. She nodded grimly. Yeah, that tracks. She closed the laptop. The shitstorm has officially landed. Your phone has about 100 missed calls, texts, voicemails. She paused. His parents called me. Twice. They're confused, worried. Mike apparently told them some bullshit story about us having a huge fight, that you overreacted to something stupid he said, stormed off. A fresh wave of anger, cold and sharp, cut through the numbness. A fight? Overreacted. I croaked. He told them that. Sarah's expression was venomous. Yeah. The coward. Probably buying time to spin his web of lies with Lily. His mom sounded genuinely concerned for you. Kept saying Mike was distraught but wouldn't say what happened, just that it was his fault and he needed to fix it. She snorted. Understatement of the freaking century. I buried my face in my hands. The layers of betrayal kept multiplying. He wasn't just trying to salvage us, he was actively constructing a narrative where I was the hysterical bride, and he was the remorseful husband who'd made some minor, forgivable error. Erasing Lily. Erasing the incest. Erasing the utter devastation had wrought. The cowardice was almost as staggering as the act itself. My parents. I asked, dreading the answer. Called me around 6 a.m., Sarah said. Worried sick. They couldn't reach you. Couldn't reach Mike. They knew something was very wrong. She hesitated. I didn't tell them the whole truth, Claire. Not yet. I said Mike did something unforgivable. Something involving Lily. That you were safe with me, but you were shattered. That you'd call them when you could. She looked at me, her eyes pleading for understanding. I couldn't just drop that bomb over the phone. Not when you weren't ready. Relief warred with dread. Relief that they knew I was safe, that Sarah had shielded them from the full horror for now. Dread for the moment I'd have to look into my father's eyes and tell him his little girl's husband had slept with his adopted sister on their wedding night. The shame, the anger, the disappointment, it was unbearable to contemplate. Thank you, I whispered, tears welling up again. For everything. Sarah squeezed my ankle under the blanket. Always. Now, what do you want to do? Your parents want to come over. His parents want to talk to you. Mike, she scowled. Mike has been blowing up my phone too, begging me to let him talk to you. Saying, hell, explain. Explain. What explanation could possibly exist? What justification? drunkenness, stress, some twisted, long-denied passion that conveniently ignited after had pledged his life to me. It was all garbage. Lies layered on top of the fundamental, irredeemable lie. I took a deep, shuddering breath. The numbness was receding, replaced by a cold, hard determination. I wouldn't hide. I wouldn't let him control the narrative. I wouldn't let Lily slink back into the shadows. They had ripped my life apart. I wouldn't let them dictate how the pieces fell. Call my parents, I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the tremor underneath. Tell them to come here. I need to tell them myself. I met Sarah's gaze. And then I need a lawyer. Part 3 follows the confrontation with parents, the fallout, and the first steps forward. The hour before my parents arrived was agonizing. Sarah made strong coffee, which I sipped mechanically, the bitter taste mirroring the acid churning in my stomach. She tried to get me to eat toast, but the mere thought of food made me nauseous. I sat wrapped in blankets on her couch, rehearsing the words in my head, dreading the pain I was about to inflict on the two people who loved me most. When the doorbell finally rang, a sharp, intrusive sound, I flinched. Sarah answered it. My mother rushed in first, her face pale and drawn with worrying, her eyes instantly searching for mine. Clare, sweetheart. She enveloped me in a hug smelling of her familiar Chanel No. 5 and the cold morning air. The familiar scent, usually comforting, now felt like a relic from a lost world. My father followed, his expression grave, his usual joviality completely absent. He placed a large, warm hand on my shoulder, his grip firm, anchoring. Sarah said Mom began, pulling back slightly to cup my face, her eyes scanning the wreckage, the puffy eyes, the pallor, the utter desolation. Honey, what happened? Where's Mike? What did he do? Her voice trembled. My father remained silent, but his jaw was clenched, his eyes fixed on me, radiating protective fury. He knew Mike, had welcomed him as a son. Whatever Sarah had hinted at, he was braced for the worst. Taking a deep, ragged breath, I began. The words tumbled out, haltingly at first, then in a torrent I couldn't stop. The perfect day. The tiny moments I dismissed. Going to the suite. Opening the door. What I saw. Mike's shirt. Lily's bare shoulder. The smell. The excuses. The lies. The adopted sister detail hung in the air, adding its own layer of profound, stomach-churning sickness. I spared no detail, the horror spilling out raw and unfiltered. I described throwing the rings, Sarah finding me, Mike's pathetic pleas, Lily's chilling possessiveness. As I spoke, my mother's face transformed. Shock, disbelief, then a dawning, horrified comprehension that settled into an ashen, trembling stillness. Tears streamed silently down her cheeks, but she made no sound, just held my hands tightly, her grip almost painful. My father, his reaction was volcanic. His face darkened, a vein throbbing in his temple. He didn't interrupt, but when I mentioned Lily's name, a low, guttural sound escaped him, a sound of pure, unadulterated disgust. When I finished, the silence in Sarah's small apartment was thick, suffocating, charged with the aftershock of an earthquake. His sister. My mother finally whispered, the words barely audible, laced with a revulsion that mirrored my own. On your wedding night. She shook her head slowly, as if trying to dislodge the impossible image. Oh, Claire, my poor baby. My father stood up abruptly. He paced the small space, running a hand through his graying hair, his shoulders rigid with tension. That little bastard, he growled, his voice dangerously low. That sick, twisted and Lily. After everything the Mitchells did for them. He stopped pacing, turning to face me, his eyes blazing. I'll kill him. I swear to God, Claire, I'll break his neck. Dad, no. The panic surged again. Please. It's not worth it. Hayes, not worth it. Saying it felt like a betrayal of my own rage, but the thought of my father facing consequences for their depravity was unbearable. Not worth it. My father roared, slamming his fist down on Sarah's small dining table, making the coffee mugs jump. He destroyed you. He humiliated you. He violated every trust imaginable. With his own sister. The word was a curse. The Mitchells, John, and Helen, they'll be destroyed. His anger momentarily flickered into a profound, shared sorrow. John Mitchell was his best friend. My mother finally found her voice stronger now, though still trembling. We need to call them. John and Helen. They need to know what Mike and Lily have done. Her voice hardened. Before Mike spins more lies. The thought of confronting Mike's parents, the people who had treated me like a daughter, who had toasted our future just yesterday, filled me with fresh dread. But my mother was right. They deserved the truth, however horrific. And they needed to hear it from me before Mike poisoned the well. I'll call them, I said, the decision solidifying my resolve now. Before Mike gets to them again. Sarah handed me my phone, her expression grimly supportive. My hands shook as I scrolled to John Mitchell's contact. Mike's dad. Taking another deep breath, I pressed call, putting it on speakerphone so my parents and Sarah could hear. It rang twice before he answered, his voice heavy with concern and exhaustion. Clare, honey, thank God you called. Are you all right? Mike is here. He's a mess. Won't tell us anything coherent, just keeps saying he messed up badly, that he needs to talk to you. Helen and I are beside ourselves. What on earth happened last night? The genuine worrying in his voice, the fatherly concern, almost broke me. I squeezed my eyes shut for a second, gathering strength. John, I began, my voice surprisingly steady, though brittle. Helen's there too. I assumed she was. Yes, darling, I'm here. Helen's voice came on, thick with edged tears. Please, tell us what's going on. We're so worried about you both. I'm safe, I said first. I'm at Sarah's. I paused, the words sticking in my throat. What happened? It's not just a fight, John. Helen. I swallowed hard. Last night, after the reception, I went up to the honeymoon suite. I opened the door. I forced myself to continue, my voice flat, devoid of inflection, a stark recitation of facts. Mike and Lily were in the bed. Together. Intimately. I didn't elaborate. The words hung in the air, stark and horrifying. Silence. Profound, utter silence on the other end of the line. I could almost hear the world crashing down around them. What? John's voice was a strangled whisper. Claire, what are you saying? Lily. Our Lily? Yes, I confirmed, the word like ice. Your Lily. His adopted sister. In the bed meant for us. On our wedding night. I added the last part, the ultimate twist of the knife, necessary for them to grasp the full, monstrous depth of it. A choked sob came from Helen. No, oh God, no, Claire. That can't be. There must be some mistake. Her voice was high-pitched, bordering on hysteria. There's no mistake, Helen, I said, my voice cracking slightly despite my resolve. I saw them. I heard them. Mike admitted it happened. I left out the drunken mistake part. It was irrelevant. He tried to say it meant nothing, but it meant everything. It meant the end of my marriage. It meant the end of everything. John made it sound like had been punched in the gut. Where is Lily? His voice was rough, shattered. I don't know, I said honestly. She was in the suite when I left. Mike was there. Another agonizing silence. Then John, his voice trembling with a mixture of heartbreak and dawning fury. And Claire, I am so sorry. So deeply, profoundly sorry. There are no words. He trailed off, overwhelmed. Helen was crying openly now, muffled sobs audible. Well, deal with this, John continued, his voice gaining a steely edge it never heard before. Well, deal with them. You focus on yourself, Claire. On healing. We will be in touch. The line went dead. The abruptness spoke volumes. Their world had just imploded too. The silence in Sarah's apartment was heavy. My mother was crying quietly again. My father looked like he wanted to put his fist through a wall. Sarah just looked fiercely vindicated. Well, Sarah said grimly, breaking the silence. The cat's out of the bag. And it's one ugly freaking cat. The next few days were a surreal haze of legal consultations, packing, and navigating a minefield of well-meaning but excruciating calls and messages. Sarah was my rock, my fierce advocate, handling logistics, screening calls, making sure I ate something, even if it was just soup. My parents were devastated but fiercely protective, offering their home as a refuge. I couldn't face my apartment, yet the apartment Mike and I shared. Every corner held memories now rendered toxic. Sarah helped me pack a bag with essentials from there when Mike was predictably absent, the air thick with the ghost of his betrayal. The lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Evelyn Hayes recommended by Sarah's cousin, listened to my story with grim professionalism. Annulment, she stated immediately after I finished, her expression one of controlled disgust. Grounds, fraud. He entered the marriage under false pretenses, concealing an ongoing intimate relationship that fundamentally violates the marital contract and, frankly, societal norms. The adoption adds a significant layer of complexity and public revulsion, which unfortunately will play into the media circus this might become, but legally strengthens the fraud angle. She outlined the process, filing the petition, serving Mike the possibility of a quick hearing given the egregious circumstances. We'll also file for a temporary restraining order if you feel unsafe, though based on what you've said, his reaction seems more panicked than threatening. We'll also secure your financial interests, separate assets. Do you want his name off the lease, off bank accounts? The cold, clinical dissection of my ruined marriage was strangely grounding. It was action. It was taking back control, piece by painful piece. Yes, I said, my voice firmer than it had been in days. All of it. Get him out. Get his name off everything. Mike's attempts at contact became increasingly desperate and pathetic. Texts shifted from pleading apologies, "I'm so sorry, baby, I'll do anything. It was a massive mistake," to angry defensiveness, "You're blowing this way out of proportion. It was one time. It didn't mean anything," to manipulative guilt trips, "You're destroying my family. My parents won't speak to me. Is that what you want?" Lily was silent. Her social media, which I morbidly checked once prompting Sarah to confiscate my phone for an hour, was abruptly set to private. News inevitably began to leak. A small local gossip blog ran a vague but incendiary piece. Local wedding bliss turns to scandal. Sources hint at shocking betrayal involving family member. No names were mentioned, but the description was enough for anyone who knew us. The Mitchells were prominent. My phone started ringing with numbers I didn't recognize. Reporters. Curiosity seekers. I ignored them all. Evelyn Hayes issued a terse statement confirming the marriage was being annulled due to irreconcilable differences and actions fundamentally incompatible with the marital union prior to its consummation, and requested privacy. 2 weeks after the wedding that wasn't, I stood in the echoing emptiness of what used to be our apartment. The movers had just taken the last of my furniture, the bed we'd shared, the couch we'd curled up on, the dining table where we'd planned our future. Only Mike's things remained, stark and accusing in the empty rooms. A single framed photo of us, taken on a hiking trip, lay face down on the mantelpiece where I'd left it. The air smelled of dust and absence, and faintly beneath it all, the phantom scent of jasmine. Sarah leaned against the doorframe, ready to blow this popsicle stand. I took one last look around the tomb of my former life. The pain was still there, a deep, throbbing ache. The betrayal still felt like an open wound. The humiliation still burned, but the suffocating numbness had lifted. In its place was a cold, hard anger, and beneath that, a fragile but determined resolve. Mike and Lily hadn't just broken my heart, they'd shattered my entire world. But I was still here, breathing, standing, packing my things. I turned my back on the empty apartment, on the ghost of Mike Mitchell, on the poisonous shadow of Lily. I walked towards Sarah, towards the door, towards an unknown, terrifying future. "Yeah," I said, my voice clear. carrying the weight of everything it lost, but also the first faint spark of something else. Survival. Let's get the hell out of here. The cathedral bells were silent now. All I heard was the sound of my own footsteps, moving forward, one step at a time, away from the wreckage. The road ahead was long and dark, paved with tears and legal paperwork and the echoes of betrayal. But it was my road now. Not ours, mine. And for the first time since I opened that door, that simple fact felt like a victory, however small. The Clare Evans who walked out of that apartment wasn't the same woman who had walked down the aisle. She was harder, wiser, profoundly damaged. But she was still walking. And that, for now, had to be enough. The story of Mike and Clare Mitchell was over before it began, erased by an act of ultimate betrayal. My story, Clare Evans' story, was just beginning. And it started with walking away.